Welcome to So Farscape,
a Farscape fan cast by a fervent fan
and a fresh-faced first-timer.
I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay, and this is the
story so far.
So
Farscape.
Well, we're getting there, I think.
Kind of got there. We're on episode 103, Exodus from Genesis. The title struck me this time as a bit of a sort of Star Trek level of pretentiousness. It's the Exodus from Genesis.
It was a little bit, yeah. I didn't actually look at this title before I watched the episode, but going back, I see how it makes sense.
Well, like episode titles weren't such a big thing for most TV shows at the time, and like the title never appears on screen like it does with Star Trek or Babylon 5.
Not even after the pre-credit opener, doesn't it?
No,
oh, okay,
no.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Originally, these titles were just sort of shorthand for the production crew to remember what the episode was about.
That makes sense, yeah.
And then it was decided that they were funny enough that they went to the TV guide.
It makes sense to have that little bit of an extra teaser, I suppose. Like, they don't print synopses in the TV guides very much, I think.
It has been so long since I've held a paper TV guide.
Yes, it has been a very long time.
I mean, you've still got them electronically on televisions if they do live TV.
Yeah. So I noticed that the designers of the Orville had a bit of a peek back at Moya.
Really?
I think so, with the whole swept back open space behind the ship. It kind of like reminded me a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah, where the points of the tail come together.
Exactly. Although in the Orville, it's more of a aft engine bridge section, whatever you want to call it.
So you can see that she's got like this the 3-part tail, and I think that's true for the Orville as well, except it's more like fans.
Yeah, it's more like a Geordie's visor stuck onto the back with the engine exhaust port coming out of.
Prepare for starburst!
So the scene opens with Airbrows doing some vegetable painting, or at least that's what it looks like.
Yeah, initially, like he's painting and he's humming away. He does a lot of humming and groaning in this episode.
Does, yes. Well, he's always a bit of a grumpy guy anyway.
And you think that he's painting a still life until he picks up one of his subjects and just snacks on it.
At first, I thought he was actually painting the vegetables, but that was
just a meal. And then you see his terrible painting
of himself. It was a bit.
It's a self-portrait, and he's so pleased with it.
Perfection.
You know, it's like just a blotchy painting, like, 6-year-olds would do, maybe.
Yes, exactly, because, he's talked about how he's never held a tool before.
I don't even know how to hold a tool.
Clearly.
And so now he has that confidence now that he's swung the bris knife and the Luxon.
Yes. Yeah. Although looking at the photo, it actually has the bowl of vegetables right in front of there with him. So I guess he's done with painting it now, and now he can eat it.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's a really adorable painting, and I wonder if any lucky fan ever got that as a prop, because that would be a real treasure. So the next scene is also domestic, and I like that it opened with just these ordinary scenes of life on a spaceship with a crew that
yes, that's what they're
other.
trying to establish. They're living here, and they're moving through the uncharted territories. Was that what they were called again?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yes.
We are hunted by peacekeepers, lost in the uncharted territories with no purpose in life.
They have to, live with each other, and
what does that look like? That looks
getting
like
bugs shoved into your mouth, apparently.
Yes, Crichton gets to encounter the standard mode of dental hygiene.
Yes,
don't be a coward. You say you want to clean your teeth,
which is a hairy little caterpillar, sort of white with these. It's wiggly.
It looks a bit like a shrimp with extra black bits on it, and like a two-tailed shrimp.
No, absolutely not. Get out of my face.
Why is it so hairy?
I don't know. I mean, I guess those are the things that it uses to get between your teeth to clean the bits of food out.
Floss.
Yeah.
That's handy.
Would that be floss? Lip liner?
It is basically one of those cleaning shrimp that you see in fish tanks, which eat the algae and the other bits and parasites off.
That's right.
And apparently you get it shoved in your mouth and then it cleans your mouth, all because he said, I want to brush my teeth.
Brush them. I want to brush my teeth.
But to manually clean your teeth, as you describe, is highly inefficient.
It's too damn bad. You're not sticking that freaking maggot in my...
Here you go. This is a standard method for it.
Never swallow a dentic.
Ah, yes. Dentic, that's what they're called. And he does actually just spit it out.
It's kind of minty.
So, I mean, are they single use?
I have no idea whether you can just pick them up off the floor and they're self-cleaning.
They are cleaner things.
It's kind of a brilliant idea that there would be just a creature. It sort of reminded me of those birds in alligators' mouths that sort of happily live there, picking out the detritus from their meals.
What you doing?
Cleaning all the excess bacteria and food particles.
What are they called?
No idea.
The little...
Teeth-picking birds. I don't know. They're like...
Well, we'll call them dentics.
Dentics. Oh, might as
I
well.
mean, life imitates art, doesn't it?
It does.
So very quickly, they are summoned to the bridge. It was the first instance of my favorite line from any science fiction series.
You better get up here quickly.
You better come up here and take a look for yourself.
Yes.
Or to see for yourself, or whatever. Why do people say that? Just describe what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's like they found Alderaan.
That's no moon.
Oh, no! But it's a beautiful shot as he comes up to the bridge, and the camera sort of pans across, and we see out the viewport.
Yeah, a golden cloud of particles, which is... First you think it's the sun, but they call it an asteroid belt. Although Tentacles quickly says it's like, that's no asteroid belt.
Asteroid debris does not move like that.
Because you see all these
That's
sort of
true.
tides and currents in it. It's really gorgeous. Like this, I remember when I first saw this, I was just blown away that this would be an opening scene, because the camera is constantly moving in this show. I don't know if you've noticed already. Like, it's all steady cam, so it's always gracefully moving. And then to have a green screen shot like this that you sort of sweep into was a very expensive effect for TV.
Okay, well, I mean, they did it on Star Trek. They had the...
Stationary cameras a lot of the time.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
And that's easier to do, and now they have to sort of matte and the motion matching with 3D rendered content outside. Like, we're kind of spoiled with that now, but at the time it was oof.
I mean, well, for the content outside, you wouldn't have to include parallax. I mean, you wouldn't get that on such a small motion.
No, that is true, and I don't think that was produced here as well. We do get, like, one of my favorite effects continues to be the appearance of Pilot in his little clamshells that he's got everywhere, perfectly shaped for his adorable head.
Which makes me again think that he might be part of the ship. You know, the fact that it happens to match his shape so far, that makes me think that he might just actually be rooted into place at least, or have at least a more symbiotic relationship with Moya than
That's very
everybody
good
else
thinking,
has.
Yeah. I mean, he's constantly in his den.
Which is huge. We got I think it was the first time we got an actual good look at the entire room.
Yeah.
And it's enormous.
Cavernous. Yeah. And it's got the deep pit going down.
Of course,
and
you have to have the
walkways.
not approved walkways, which don't have
no railings.
Health and safety is not happy about this, but that's how it goes.
Hey, but they've got military discipline on these craft. Certainly Aeryn, who's at the sort of command station, and she and Pilot are pretty in tune at this point. Like you saw,
they work very well together.
We work together well, Pilot.
As everybody else was catching up, in particular Dargo, when she illustrates the debris is not the problem.
The debris cloud isn't our problem.
No, the ship on the other side of the debris is.
Yeah, which summons a cool sort of table hologram, which
looks amazing.
Hey, that's another ship.
Crichton's like astonished at that. Oh, cool.
He seems to take it in stride. He doesn't seem to be gawking at the hologram for what it is more than for what it's
I noticed
showing.
that he gets it pretty quickly, and then Dargo, once he realizes what the situation is and why Aeryn has been moving, instructs Pilot.
Pilot, stay behind the debris.
Aeryn just rolls her eyes.
Yeah, like he wasn't doing that already. Which
stating the obvious.
So which is the one question I had about this scene is like the ship is shown to be scanning the debris field.
Scanning? That ship is scanning.
So I guess Moya scanners must be much better than this Marauder ship that I believe they called it.
It's a Marauder.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the Marauder can't scan through the debris shield, but Moya has no problem in scanning them, or at least noting
good point.
Noting their presence and getting a very detailed look at their ship.
Weird that a prisoner transport has a better scanning suite than a prison hunting ship.
I assume that Moya wasn't a prisoner transport by design.
If they were hunting a Leviathan, maybe they'd purpose another Leviathan for it.
Or at least get a ship that has a better scanning range than a Leviathan.
And more speed, because this one's like the Marauder can only go Hetch 7, which Crichton already knows.
Hetch 7? Thing's a Hyundai. Why don't we stop playing hide and seek and just smoke them?
Yeah. And then they'll know where to look, and we'll get the entire carrier behind us, and we can't outrun those. Or they could just blast it out of the air, but apparently they can't do that either.
No, they don't have weapons.
Oh, Moya doesn't have any armory.
No weapons, so why not lighten up?
Yeah,
Moya's just a space whale.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Space whales might have weapons.
What kind of weapons does a whale... I mean, you have toothed whales, now that I'm saying it.
Narwhal, ramming maneuver.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That would be a cool design if she had sort of a horn, a tusk.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what narwhals have, right? It's not a horn. It's just a tooth that's grown out through their head.
Yeah, it's a huge tusk.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't sound pleasant at all. But
nature is weird, as we see when
scary.
the asteroid debris sort of slurps.
coalesces in a Star Trekian energy creature will now be invading your ship kind of way.
Yeah.
Which kind of gives, it doesn't give it away. It's like obvious that it's happening. And
slithers into Moya from space, but I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. We're not going to have any problems with that.
The ship is invaded.
But nobody knows this yet.
Nobody knows this
They're
yet.
just going about with their,
and after
their daily
Crichton
lives.
puts a scuttlebutt back on its feet,
Go play.
which apparently got knocked over by the invaders, we go to the credits.
Yeah, they're sort of finding their footing with this, because this was an interesting production. They were using, what are they called? Episode blocks or episode pods. It's a filming technique used in Australian television, particularly soap operas, where they take 3 episodes and film them simultaneously.
Oh, yes.
So you have 3 directors, you have three units filming scenes for these episodes to make optimum use of the sets. Certainly handy at the beginning of a series when some sets are still being built and you don't know where you're going to be able to shoot. So the first 6 episodes were shot in these 3 episode blocks, and this one was actually most of the scenes in this one were the first ones filmed. So the actors were still finding their characters. Right. And the idea was that they would have this as a bit of a playground, and then a few days later or a week later, they'd film most of the scenes for the first episode, and they'd have their character more grounded by that time.
Right, so they'd already have an idea of what they were going to, where they were going towards.
It's an interesting way to work, but it seems like an absolute logistical nightmare.
Yes, it's also tough on the actors because they have to where are we now? Which episode are we in? And but yeah, so it starts with the scene between Aeryn and Crichton, who are having an argument, and she shows the disdain of his. I don't think she calls him a lower life form yet at this point, but
no, but it's certainly implied.
And yeah, she's clearly unimpressed with him so far,
and he's frustrated about it. That's a theme throughout this episode.
Cut me some slack, bitch.
Zhaan is a voice of calming reason. She understands him a lot better. As well as with Rygel when she goes to visit him.
Ah, yes, and we have some Data-esque levels of speed painting.
Yeah, by Zhaan.
By Zhaan, yes.
And I liked how, when the ship maneuvered, everything sort of lurched, and so his brush cast a great big swath of red across his painting, but he also has a swath of red on his face.
But he got smashed into the painting itself, so yeah, he's
now it's ruined,
it on his
and
face.
she goes, oh no,
it's more accurate than you'd think, yes.
Yeah.
It's more accurate than you think.
They've got these gold sheets that she uses to wipe.
I noticed that later as well in the bedroom.
Are comfortable?
No, I don't think so. There would be. I mean, no, nothing that Earth produced at least would be comfortable if it had a sheen like that.
Yeah,
but space mechanics might have different.
That's the spirit. Usually, I'm the one who's trying to convince you. Yeah, but it's space stuff, so it's probably fine.
Yeah. And actually, Moya might just extrude them herself or something, and they might be like golden silk made by
or
Moya
they might
herself.
just be cast off skin follicles.
Well, it's like if they're big enough, just cut them into a square.
Moya's elastic skin saved us.
That painting that Zhaan makes of Rygel.
It's called a spirit painting. We Delvians do it for recreation. It's rather rushed.
I thought she said speed painting, but yeah, spirit painting.
Certainly she seemed to be on speed. Yes, we do that for recreation.
And it's like a very regal-looking Rygel.
Yes, it reminds me a lot of Rygel the First.
Yes.
My most honoured ancestor.
It looks like Rygel the Great. Rygel the First, my most honoured ancestor.
Obviously, a part of his spirit resides within you.
Well, I mean, he was the first of the line.
You had it so very easy.
A brief trip back to the loading bay, just long enough for Aeryn to get stuck with a little needle shot out by one of the space bugs.
Yes, they're scuttling about, and I was the whole scene reminded me a little bit of Lex. And it's like bugbot seeking, like these little.
Yeah, because he misses a few times.
Exactly.
Before he gets there, and you see it through his perspective.
And they have this weird blocky vision.
Bug bomb malfunction.
Yes.
Yeah, she finds a metal splinter in her hand. It's got a little blood. She wipes
Pulls
it away.
it out, drops it, yeah.
Metal splinter.
And then the little bug picks it up like a little creepy DNA Roomba.
At that point, you're going like, oh, what are they going to do with this? I thought it was a poison needle, but then when like she just pulls it out and like the little bug collects it, it's like, oh, okay, it's going to be one of those episodes.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Dargo has one that he's plucking out as well.
And Crichton is consulting the Ouija board.
The giant Ouija board says optimum +3.
Feels like +30.
Discovering
Yes,
that discovering that it's a little bit warm here, a couple of degrees above zero, above optimal, which is very cleverly never defined.
Yeah, right. Optimum +3. So apparently everyone has an optimum temperature, despite the fact that Dargo describes the temperature once it gets a little bit warmer as on Luxa this would be a mild winter morning.
On Luxem, this is a mild winter morning.
Yes, so he must be cold, or maybe they're just like super well adjusted to a wide range of temperature.
I wonder if he's cold-blooded as well, because he sort of has a...
if he is, and this is considered a mild winter morning, then I don't want to see him when he's in a hot desert area. He must be absolutely mental when that happens.
Yeah.
If this is him operating at...
It doesn't seem to affect him. Well,
No.
as the temperature increases, because he's got the sort of what's it called? Is it like an octopus look about him? What are they called?
The dreadlocks.
Cephalopods.
Oh, right, yes.
Oh no, fish do get more active when it's warmer.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's been no indication that he's cold-blooded so far, unlike our Peacekeeper now.
Yeah, I think finally the species gets named. She's a sebation.
A sebation.
Sebaceous like the gland necessary to regulate extreme thermal increases.
Sebaceous. What are sebaceous fluids again?
I don't know what sebaceous fluids are. I know cetaceans are like dolphins and other sea mammals.
So we now know that the Peacekeepers are all one hyper-militaristic species where the weak get weeded out. And this is like a thing that she has hanging over Crichton for quite a bit. Like she's always going, oh, you're weak and useless.
Yeah, and that's something that's really starting to get to Crichton. And he opens up to Zhaan about it. And as usual, like she is the voice of reason and also like a great counselor. Like she's the Deanna Troi with a little bit more sort of charm and wisdom.
Time and patience.
Time and patience. Is that your answer for everything?
Yes, because it's always the right answer.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a problem with the heat fence, apparently. Yes, that's why they realize that the temperature is increasing.
Diagnostics are showing some sort of blockage in the vents preventing us discharge into space.
And they go looking for the heat vents, and that's where the scene happens, where and he even doesn't know how to open a valve.
Takes me 10 minutes to figure out how to open the door.
Now, as a UX guy, which is kind of my thing, that valve with its weird sort of curved scimitar shape, he uses it correctly. Like that is the way that you would grip it, and when you grip it like that, then you push it. So he pushes it down, whereas Zhaan takes the inverse position and pushes it up via the knob. But she counsels time and patience
for everything.
You'll need to develop some patience yourself if you expect to survive here.
And I like that she also gives him advice that they're both like he wants Aeryn and Dargo's respect. They're warriors, they're soldiers. They respect actions. Get things done.
Actions speak to them. Actions like tactical maneuvers, defending the ship, fixing the heat.
Which happens almost immediately in the next scene, because he goes checking the rest of the heat vents, which for some reason the ship's engine heat vents run through the crew quarters.
Ditto Zhaan and Rygel's quarters, checking mine now.
Which I thought a bit peculiar, but...
Okay, so this ship does not appear to have, like, room-specific HVAC.
Yeah.
Because the whole ship is one temperature, and that's it.
Yes.
Like, they
but
don't have...
Why would you run the waste heat vents for the engine through the crew quarters?
Well, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you like, a problem with a spacecraft is all the heat that it generates.
Yes. You can't vent heat. You have to radiate it off in space, unless you're actually
dumping... Well, you can vent hot gas.
You will, yes, but then you're dumping mass, and that you're going to run out of that at a prodigious rate. That's generally not a good idea on dumping large amounts of mass on spaceships, especially not if you have massless drives.
All attempts to chill the ship are being overridden by the heat buildup.
In these quarters, where we again have the beautiful golden sheets that we briefly mentioned before.
Yeah.
He finds one of those little bug things.
The little DNA Roombas,
yeah. And
they're creepy, aren't they? They've got the sort of carapace and the...
I mean, they're very much like the scuttlebots, but now buggy, and they kind of like move around.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They probably used the same interior and just made an extra...
Very good chance that they just put a different shell on a scuttlebutt. Because they kind of have to, these are shaped more like a, whatchamacallit?
Well, like a beetle, I guess.
Yeah.
Not a cockroach, what do you call it? The little... They're under rocks.
Yeah.
Because they've got the sort of
Pillbugs.
scales. Pillbugs, that's the one.
A little bit, yeah. And then you have the little gun on top they used to shoot their darts with, and little proboscis or paws to pick them up with. And, of course, he says, don't let them get back into the vents, which apparently our Luxon warrior knows that they came from.
No, it's because Crichton says so. They must have come out of the vents or something. And then he says, don't let them get back in the vent. And of course, Dargo just stating the obvious. It's so great.
And the moment that happens, one of the first one who was in the room ducks into the vent, and you can see him go, oh, there we go again. I'm already fucking it up.
Because he's up almost on the ceiling. He's a bit of a wuss.
He is Crichton. A bit. He does. I would be for space alien bugs.
Oh yeah. Well, they might if they're 2 feet long.
2 feet long space bugs, yeah.
Especially when he starts blocking the entrance to the vent, and a second bug, which had been scuttering about, suddenly extends some very long spindly legs and stands
shows
up
off
a lot more.
That he can do the hokey cokey.
Darling, I don't dance.
Shuffling back and forth a little bit until Crichton grabs himself one of these beautiful blankets. Again, here they come again.
The golden sheets,
manages to jump the bug with it and bash it around. The whole fight with the bug leaves him rather shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, because certainly the bug, which is just a pile of goo at this point.
Well, that gets bashed about quite a lot.
And he's so sheepish about it. I sort of got the impression that he was just super embarrassed about being scared of this thing, and so he overreacted and had to kill it.
Smashes it twice, once against the floor, once against the wall, and then he starts walking off with it, and it scutters again, so he smashes it some more.
He's terrified. There's apparently enough to analyze, which Zhaan does.
But if I can analyze its DNA, perhaps we can understand why it's here.
And discovers that it's got human DNA.
Yes.
That's
specifically
creepy.
Crichton's DNA.
My DNA? How can that bug be carrying my DNA?
I love that she was able to study the DNA through a microscope.
Well, that's what the analyzer's saying.
They find some gunk on a door, which Dargo is trying to cut open with a prison laser saw.
Nothing can resist a prism laser saw.
Well, you better check the warning cause, because that stuff ain't budging.
Which doesn't seem to be very effective against the
not
gunk
not against the
door.
blue goo. No, it does work a lot better against Moira's interior.
Outraging
the pilot.
Yes, how dare
You cut into Moya without warning.
And the little scuttlebutt pokes him or zaps him, whatever it is that he does.
Exacting a little bit of impotent revenge.
Crichton wanders over and encounters Zhaan standing in the corridor.
Yes, who doesn't speak to him, and she's using the heat vent incorrectly. He helps her to move it the way she's trying to move it.
And he gets smacked around for his troubles.
Once he realizes that, hey, you're opening these heat vents, or no, you're closing these heat vents.
Trap the heat in.
Zhaan kicks his ass quite handily and pukes blue gunk all over the vent control.
At which point I was kind of surprised that Crichton didn't immediately leap towards the idea that, okay, this is something else. He's still kind of assuming that it is Zhaan.
Yeah, he doesn't know any of these people or how inconsistent they are, so he just accepts that this is another one of those weird things.
Zhaan just beat the crap out of me, then spit up that blue snot the bugs use.
Goes up to the bridge to talk to Aeryn, who, same deal, she's...
Doesn't say a word.
Yep.
Nothing, just stands there working the controls.
And Pilot, with some concern, notes that she's turning up the heat even more.
She is initiating a thermal increase.
And which would be a very strange thing for her to do, because she's the one who's starting to suffer from heat stroke
Sebation
here.
heat delirium. Yep. Yeah, it's getting pretty bad for her. But so he tries to stop her. She fights back.
Do not let her execute that command.
Thanks a lot, Pilot. That's a big help.
There's a bit of a scuffle, and
she dies from having her arm ripped off.
Blue gunked arm.
Which seemed a bit weird. I mean, for a creature that strong and a creature which is apparently identical on the molecular level as we learned.
On the exterior.
Oh, is that only
the exterior down to the...
This is a perfect duplicate of Aeryn's exterior, right down to the micron.
Which seems weird. And then you just rip its arm off and it dies. I thought that was a bit of an easy win in the fight.
I mean, they are just little bugs, basically. Little 2-foot space bugs, blowed up to...
What's the blue stuff? Is that a shell around the bugs, or is this some other...
Oh, no, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So is there still sort of bug ligaments inside, and the rest is just sort of filler?
I don't know.
Or
are they? Well, I mean, they're grown completely separate. But even if it was just a bug inside, then definitely ripping its arm off would not be enough to kill it.
Then again, maybe this is just a very good a very good imitation of Sebacean physiology. I did say one of the potential hypotheses for why Sebaceans and humans look alike is that it's pure coincidence and she's actually slugs on the inside.
Right, but the odds of her being blue on the inside are very small, I guess.
Are you going to check? I'm not.
I don't think I'll be given the opportunity to.
Keep your hands off and your nose out of other people's business.
So they put the corpse of faux Aeryn on the examination table, and I noticed this immediately. The camera is still.
Yeah.
It's so jarring in this show where the camera is always moving. Because you have the composite with Aeryn standing over her own imitation corpse.
And I don't think it looks like they used a mask or a puppet or something like that.
No,
I think
it's just her lying down and standing up.
It's just like this vacant stare into the camera, which is a little bit creepy, but I mean, it is just a ripped off head.
So they realize that they're being imitated, and Dargo the Obvious has a brilliant idea.
Dargo the Obvious, yes, let's go with that.
He takes out his bris knife and suggests cutting the tip of our finger off. He still has that bris knife.
It's not a bris knife. This is a regular one. I noticed. It's more like a standard serrated combat knife.
Yeah, it's got a space K-bar.
So no fingers are getting cut off. Just a little spray on from the, I don't know what it is. It's just like a little...
Some little paint, I guess.
Red spray. Why would they have that on an examination table?
Well, this is also like the maintenance bay and the lab. Like it does everything.
Maintenance bay. Lab section.
It's just where they keep all the equipment. Zhaan is kind of smart about this because she lifts her sleeve to get the spot. Because like the spots throughout the rest of the episodes are pretty inconsistent in whether they appear or don't appear, and some of the doubles have them or not. Like they must have been struggling with the production. No problem with Zhaan because it's always covered, so you can't tell.
The crew, after having done the examination, decides that they will have to get into the bulkhead where the bugs seem to have holed themselves up.
And who can fit there except
again? There's
Rygel.
A small place that in the ship that someone has to get through. So
You're the only one small enough.
Rygel gets toughed through the hole by Dargo.
How dare you, you Luxon swine!
He just throws him right out of his chair.
I know, just upends the throne sled.
Throws him into the hole, much to Rygel's chagrin.
Now, I noticed as a longtime fan of this show, I noticed just how against type these early episodes were, and not so much that the writing was inconsistent, but some of these characters, I think certainly Rygel, were being pushed out of their defined character even before that character had really been defined. Like we see Rygel now twice being pushed into the role of hero. The first one like a surgeon, you know, a flying doctor in space, and the second one like I guess kind of diehard spy, both of which are profoundly like. He is not a courageous person at all.
You truly are cowardly.
Like I do recall from the commentary track with I think it was Brian Henson. Yes, Brian Henson and Virginia Hay did the commentary track for this, and it's so good. She has such a lovely voice. She plays Zhaan, and they talked about how in the early episodes they pushed these characters way too hard. Like Aeryn gets pushed into a vulnerable place despite they
her being the tough girl, and Rygel gets being made the one who has to act the hero, and I guess his cowardice nature is going to persist through the rest of the series.
That's just he's like Oscar the Grouch. He's cowardly and he's selfish. That's just who he is. I guess the Zhaan and Dargo get to be fairly stable.
Yes, I mean Zhaan hasn't really done anything yet other than be a little the voice of reason and be counsel. She seems to be the least developed character-wise in that point. I mean, she's always talking about other people and doing things, but we know very little about herself. I mean, a little bit where she comes from and a little bit of what
she's an anarchist.
What she does, but what she is.
No, I think that's a very good observation. Like there's we still don't know much about her, but like she is such an adhesive for the rest of this crew.
I mean, it would have been flown apart.
They would have killed each other by now.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't like each other. They don't know each other.
They're at arms with each other constantly.
Actually, there are two people who sort of like each other, and that's Aeryn and Pilot.
I suppose, yeah, they get along well. I mean, they're both concerned with the ship's operations, I suppose.
Yeah. They're both like disciplined space travelers.
Yeah.
They're like Pilot is actual crew, and she responds to that.
Yeah, it's
and she respects someone with a job, and the rest are just unemployed layabouts as far as she's concerned.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Pilot is definitely like in the chain of command, which I guess that she would respond to.
That's a good
Even
point.
though Pilot is like, no, there's no real boss here, but like, Pilot is the guy who flies the ship and doesn't look like anybody else can do it. So
yeah, but only at their behest. So she goes and visits him in his den, asking
and
for.
where we get this beautiful shot of what it looks like. It's gorgeous,
and he's so huge because we haven't seen the scale of him before.
He's not that big. I mean, he's big, but he's not huge.
I couldn't hug him.
I suppose not.
He extends one of his claws to support Aeryn when the heat starts getting to him, and remarks that he's never been this close to a peacekeeper that he didn't fear.
It is strange to be so close to a peacekeeper I do not fear.
Yes, and it's a compliment.
That is a compliment.
Yes, I don't think that she took it that way.
No,
she's a little bit ambivalent.
That's why he clearly had to address that separately. Because my first thought is, like, if she's having this, like, heat problem, why don't you just take her to the galley and put her in the fridge?
Why didn't you just take her into one of the... Oh, no, you're right. Yes, exactly. And they do talk about that the
he says, like, I can't
consumables refrigeration.
I can't restart the computer, but that's after they after they start working on the engines or something. Because they decide that they want to turn off the engines to try and reboot the system or something to get control of the heat system.
The only thing I haven't performed is a full propulsion shutdown. It would allow me to open the cargo doors to space.
No.
Now, why they didn't put her in a shuttle, which they have, and launch that out into space.
Oh, yeah, we do. They have shuttles, yes.
Yeah, they use that to get back and forth. She has her own Browder as well.
Yeah.
That's got to have HVAC.
You'd think so. So, yeah, there's a little bit of that.
There's also a fun little confrontation between Dargo and Crichton, where their roles are sort of reversed for the first time, where Crichton unleashes some of his frustrations on Dargo.
You hate her, right? You hate peacekeepers, and you hate her. You want her to die.
He's aggressive, he's accusatory, and Dargo, instead of like overreacting or mocking him, he's actually quite sympathetic. Like he realizes that Crichton is stressed out and lashing out, and he won't let him. No. Like he sort of pushes him up against the wall, tells him to calm down.
Listen, human. Everyone is frustrated. We're all hot. And we're all going to be a lot better off if we stop just wasting time and just fix this blasted ship.
And like actually relates to him, which I thought was like a fantastic moment for these characters.
Seems a little bit undargo-ish, at least.
Yeah, right.
Him stepping out of his normal blustery, aggressive role, I suppose.
Yeah, he's normally over. I noticed that in this episode, his physicality is kind of weird. He has all of these sort of theatrical, like when he turns around to someone, like he takes the time to put down his tool and stand up, and then takes a step around because the actor was still getting used to having a sword on his back.
Right, and I noticed that as well. Yeah, he does get the sword out only once in the whole fighting against the bugs, and again, as usual, he doesn't use it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a bad sword.
He's only smashed someone with it once, and he didn't even cut them. He takes it out mostly to posture, as far as I can tell,
or to polish it.
Well, yeah,
just like that.
Got a bit of sword polishing there.
Yes, when he sneaks off to the... Oh, sneaking off. Rygel has made it through the Jeffries tubes.
What the yacht was that?
Well, no, there's got to be a better way. I mean, this ship is riddled with those...
Moira's tubes in this case. But
no, he's not. He's not crawling up Moira's tubes.
I got a worm in my gut, crawling around down in places where the sun don't shine, and I'm sick of it, okay?
And he finds the infestation.
Yes, the dark crystal-esque bug central that he finds.
Dark crystal is a great reference because there's a lot of like Henson iconography in this. I think Henson did a Little Shop of Horrors. There was a little bit of that vibe in there. I don't know if they did if they were involved in the production of Aliens. It also reminded me a little bit of the Alien Queen with the...
Yeah, it's got the slimy curtains hanging about. It's like...
And the ovipositor
that's the one,
depositing the
So where do you think all
eggs.
that biomass came from?
Now, that's a good question. I don't know that space creatures have a carbon cycle like we do. I don't know that you necessarily have to eat in order to generate mass, that there may be other ways to do it.
Acquire mass one way or the other.
Well, maybe there are forms of like matter generation through energy absorption because Moya has no problem generating air. I mean, you can't really recycle oxygen.
Yeah, you can.
I said that, and I just immediately realized that I'm an idiot. It's CO2. No, she can obviously...
You just have to use energy to like break it back up again. And
yeah, so they do need to eat. But hey, maybe this was the creature already. I mean, it's responding to heat.
Which is actually an interesting thing about the human physiology. I mean, about a lot of carbon-based physiology. It's like if you lose weight, You exhale it.
Yes.
It's like because it's the carbon which is being like turned into carbon
That's
dioxide.
the only way.
So most of the weight you lose is being exhaled. It's a weird concept to think about that. But then again, the opposite's true with plants. Like all those trees, that was just like they don't take that up through the roots. No, it comes in through the leaves, and it's just CO2 they absorb.
Yes,
and turn into
all of the bark, there's just some water and nutrients that come out of the through the root systems when they need some, I don't know, sulfur or iron or whatever to
and
metabolize.
Everything else is just like taken from the air.
I don't know. Maybe that's why the air smells so stale.
Well, I don't know what the case is with space creatures. I know in Star Trek: The Next Generation, the starships have Bazard collectors. That's the red bits on the warp drives that just absorb particles and antiparticles. So maybe they have something similar. Maybe they're just constantly snacking as they breathe through space. But yeah, it also reminded me this infestation a little bit of another Henson production, the Fraggles, like Marjorie, the trash heap.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
The prophecy of the trash heap. She's a bit prophetic, isn't she? If I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So yes, we've got this big nest.
Some kind of nest.
Producing more bugs, and we see this like big cocoon-like thing slide out. And I love that little bitch fight between Airbrows and Tentacles about like it's like nest. What do you mean? It's like nest. Is it too many
letters for you, Luxon? Try hive.
It's just like
it's the same number. It's the same number. Yes. But we don't know. We don't know what the word is in the Babel.
Fair point.
That's being translated for them. Speaking of translation, Zhaan wanders onto the bridge with a big sort of venom claw sticking out of her that she can't get out.
We saw how she got zapped by that in her quarters,
and suddenly she starts speaking in the voice of the monarch.
I am monarch of the Drak.
Like her whole affect changes. You notice how she sort of stands taller and becomes more
straighter, yes.
And she introduces like her brood as her aggregate.
These are my aggregate.
Yes.
Which I thought was a cool term as well.
And they are having genesis.
What the hell is Genesis?
Genesis,
yes. And
and they are the Drak.
Drak.
The Drak, is that what they call themselves? So yeah.
Yes, and she sort of stands there like she's the drag queen.
Oh God, I didn't even think of that.
No, okay. Virginia Hay talked about that in the commentary track on this. How in the 70s she was often mistaken for a drag queen because she's a 6 foot tall, statuesque woman. So she was used to sort of slouching.
Yeah, just to make herself look a little bit more feminine rather than weird. Yeah,
she shaved her head for this show.
Oh wow, that's.
I mean, that's like they tried it with prosthetics and it just wasn't.
Yeah,
that great.
Bald caps don't. Tend to
never
work
do a bald cap because you're touching it up all the time.
Yeah, that's.
I think she even volunteered to like shave her head, even her eyebrows.
Oh, well, I mean, a lot of women pluck their eyebrows anyway.
And the makeup is just so gorgeous.
Must have taken hours every time.
They had a bunch of different designs early on. Like some of the early designs for the different characters were really interesting. Like she had a version where she was like ink blue, and then she had sort of like balines, like the underside of a whale on her neck and gills behind her ears. But as Virginia Hay said, well, we tried that, but then it sort of looked like girly rude bits.
Ooh. So I also noticed that the crew at this point still seems to be in the habit of addressing each other by species.
Yes.
Listen, human.
Peacekeeper.
Cynerian.
Luxon.
Adelvian.
Yeah.
They always seem to address each other by their species rather than by their given names.
Zhaan's the only one who gets spared from this.
Yes.
Because I guess like Delvians didn't really make a big
Maybe there's just little cultural bias against Delvians, which would be the prime cause for addressing someone by their species rather than by their proper name. Yeah.
There was an early concept for the Delvians about their reproductive cycle. It was never developed. Oh, I guess it was sort of reused in Mass Effect now, I think, on it. That the species are all female. And they mate with males of other species.
Yes.
And then the resulting offspring is
female, and then it's
it's a blue version of the father species, but then also female.
Oh, okay.
So maybe suggesting that her father would have been a Sebacean-like species, but nothing was ever done with that.
No, all right. So we have Crichton having a little run-in with himself.
Yeah, that was That's a little bit hot, I thought. It's just sort of two sort of jockey boys
he's
posturing at each other.
Guy
in the hallway.
immediately notices the dot on his hand and just like shows off and goes like, I can do that too.
Yeah, anything you can do, I can do faster.
Oh, just to be in the warm glow of all this testosterone.
They have a little fight.
A good little punch-up, which I thought like they were going to play that more like, okay, now we don't know who's who. But they completely sidestepped that.
I liked that because that's kind of dull. It
is.
I mean, it's unnecessary drama, like not knowing who it is. And I liked how he was sort of big dogging, like, oh, you know all my moves? Well, I know yours too. That's why you got your ass kicked by you're a bad.
That's why Eddie Marks kicked your ass in the 7th grade. You fought fair.
And he wanders onto the bridge with
his own severed head, which is
severed...
also dripping blue. Okay, so yes, they're definitely...
I mean, we've already established that like ripping an arm off kills them, so I guess ripping a head off is like,
That is true for most creatures in the universe.
Yes, generally speaking. Although I have seen crickets walking around for quite some time after their head got ripped off.
They still starve.
True.
So
and it's just like blood pumping. It's just like whatever they have for blood, which is pumping through their things, which is moving them about. I think it's like.
Well, see, they don't keep their brain in their head.
I suppose not.
They've got you've got eyes and mouth parts. I guess that's the definition of the head. Are your eyes where your eyes and your mouth are?
Yeah.
And then if you keep your brain in there, that's bonus. But other than that,
yeah. Fair enough.
Makes me wonder where Dargo keeps his brain.
Well, maybe in his kneecaps.
I was going to say chest. I mean, he's got a big, huge chest, and the chest seems like a great place to keep your brain if you're not worried about it overheating.
Yeah, well, which we've already established that he's
fine with it.
Yeah. At this point in the story, I really liked how Crichton gets to show off his diplomat skills. It's like he's really becomes like this negotiator with the monarch.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And like recognizing that this is a misunderstanding and wanting to resolve it.
And normally you'd think that this role would go to Zhaan, but she's of course like being the mouthpiece of the monarch.
I guess that was sort of a convenient way to keep Zhaan out of the picture.
The equation, yes. And he gives a little white lie about how raising the temperature is going to damage Moya.
If you keep it this warm, our habitat will die.
Yes.
When in fact it's Aeryn that they have to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very agreeable because he's had some practice with First Contact now.
He has, and
with the little house in the Perseus arm last week. I think Dargo sort of admires him for it because Dargo just recognizes that there is a conflict.
We started this damn war. It is still a war. Either we die fighting them or we die from their hate.
We didn't know.
Even though the Crichton observes, like, we started this war. I killed one of them first.
And
we didn't know.
Yeah.
But Dargo is doing more realpolitik, I guess.
And he does another unnecessary bit of sword wielding. Where when 3 copies of themselves wander onto the bridge. And this time it's Crichton who holds Dargo back. He just like stands in front of him and he pushes him back and like goes, no, you mustn't, and we must talk and we must negotiate.
You asked the wrong warrior.
Successfully. So our crew withdraws to one room, like apparently agreeing to trap themselves because the monarch explains that she needs the warm environment for her spawning process.
Yes,
birthing.
Her Genesis.
The nest. This is some sort of spawning. And you're the queen?
And so they lower the temperature just a little bit so it's more manageable for Aeryn.
Who's at this point still facing the, what do they call it again?
The living death.
The living death.
Heat delirium.
Which apparently turns them into zombies or something. At least they lose their short-term memory, then they lose their coordination, and they lose their long-term memory, and then they become the living dead or something like that.
It's the only time we kill our own out of mercy.
Yeah.
I liked that. We kill our own a lot, but not out of mercy.
Yes.
And speaking of killing their own, more Sebastians arrive because they opened the cargo doors to vent some heat.
Yeah.
And they turned off the propulsion, pilot did, leaving them vulnerable to the newly arrived marauders.
Something is wrong here, sir. This ship is floating dead in space with its cargo doors wide open. Our scans show her propulsion systems as fully operational. Why?
When we secure the rest of the ship, you will have your answers. Our objective is the command. Advance pattern Decker. Shoot to kill is your order.
Rygel is still stuck in the walls of Moya, and apparently the truce doesn't extend to him because he's like still terrified of these critters which are sitting there. Whereas everybody else is retreated and is like back in comfort, and like he is still sitting there like trying to hide from them, not move, because apparently their vision is movement-based.
They just get agitated when he moves. They don't advance when he stands still.
Yes.
And so Dargo, the obvious, commands him,
"Don't move."
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't going to.
I had gotten to that part. And then we get, yes, as you mentioned, the scene where the Peacekeepers arrive. The Marauder lands with the commando team on board.
5-man crew, highest level of training, success measured by body count.
And they looked so cool in their armor and their helmets.
And wielding guns and their tactical visors and all of that.
And they actually moved pretty well. Like
there
was cool military movement, because apparently one of the crew, whom Brian Henson described as the muscular one, not entirely, was like the British equivalent of Navy SEALs. I think it's called the Special Boat Service.
Which is also a TV station, but
he could train the other Aussie actors in proper like coordination and like check the corners, and because they do look fierce until they take their helmets off and they have these terrible tattoos on their face.
I kind of like the Cole look.
Really?
It was kind of like
it's like they're all little Pharaoh cosplayers.
Are you sure that they are tattoos and they're just like not the Peacekeeper equivalent of war paint?
Oh, I thought you were going to say that the Peacekeeper equivalent of putting like grease on the inside of binoculars to give somebody else fake glasses that they open with each other's helmets.
That would have been even more awesome. But no. I mean, the first they lose the visors, then they lose the helmets, and we can see like it's a little bit of a slow striptease that we get by the.
Because they're suffering from the heat as well, which Dargo described like sebation heat delirium.
It's a weakness not enough of them die from.
So they start by shooting a copy of Zhaan, which seems to disturb the monarch, who doesn't at first realize that this is not the crew which have broken the truce. But
I noticed, like, first they shoot Dargo, and then one of the bugs, one of the actual sort of skitter creatures comes over and tends to the corpse of Dargo. They shoot that, and then the monarch really freaks out. That one she really feels sort of like maybe the duplicates are just sort of drones,
I guess.
Whereas the bugs are her actual children that she's connected with.
Somehow that must be true. Yes, because I noticed that as well. That shooting the things doesn't seem to give her much of the tremors of pain.
So with the truce broken by creatures that the monarch identifies as the same ones that, like, she accuses them of betraying the truce, recognizing the other peacekeepers as more of them. But Rygel steps up to the plate, literally steps up, like you see him actually walking.
Yes, which was an interesting bit of CGI.
And I loved how he walks sort of into this tunnel, and you see him walking into the tunnel, and it's clearly CGI, and then he's into the tunnel, and then he's just a silhouette, and that must have been the puppet. So this sort of saves themselves the
trouble of doing that CGI as well. Yeah, that makes sense.
And he petitions her as because Zhaan gives him the courage to do that. She asks him, "What would Rygel the First do?"
Yes, another obvious ploy, but apparently he is a very easily manipulated person.
WWRTFD.
WWRTFD.
What would Jesus do?
Oh, what would Rygel the First do? Very droll.
Thank you. I call that a comedic win. At once your equal
and your humble petitioner, requesting an audience.
When the little bug steps aside and moves around and lets him into one of those proboscis type things.
The monarch is apparently swayed by this diplomacy, and is open to Crichton's new plan, which is, if you let us out of here, we'll kill them.
Yep,
we'll get rid of them and save us all.
Down with that.
And the monarch says, "Yes, sure, I will lower the heat." And Crichton looks at Aeryn, says, "No, turn it up."
Yeah, and Aeryn agrees with this.
What a sacrifice, because she knows what it's going to do to her.
But it's also going to do the same to the others. And I guess at this point, it's very clear that now she is definitely considers herself more part of the crew, at least that she isn't expect any mercy from her own kind, and that she truly is out on her own there, and that she would just as rather help kill the other enforcers and die herself in the process.
No, that's right, because the commandos do remark on that when they see the Drak corpse of Aeryn, and recognize him. Oh, that's Officer Sun.
How fortunate for you to be spared the punishment of a Captain Cray's court-martial.
Well, that'll probably be a very short trial. And then we have the little interaction between Crichton and Tentacles again, where he goes like, "It's just you and me," and then he goes like, "No,
actually, it is just me." And you.
And you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Oh, dog on the obvious. Yeah, by this time the other peacekeepers, like, they're stripped down to their skivvies.
Yeah, they're getting more and more. We're seeing more of the muscular ones, and like, yeah, it's like
showing off more tattoos. Oh, they've all got the same sort of shoulder tattoos. I'm noticing.
Okay, I guess that might be a unit thing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Death from above or something.
And Crichton has a wonderful gambit where a bunch of the Drak copies of Crichton walk onto the bridge while they're collapsing from heat delirium up there, and he bluffs that he's one of them. Like one of the commandos even gets a blade to his neck and says, "Yeah, go ahead, use it.
Use your blade. The next time Grace sees my face, his crew will be dead, and he'll be staring up from a pool of his own blood."
Actually, that's the one who was talking, wasn't it? So that was actually him getting the blade to his neck.
Yeah, he was just pretending.
But he was just bluffing.
A brave gamble, Crichton.
Nah, you wouldn't have let him skewer me.
And his bluff was, I am a replicator. Yep. Because they haven't seen duplicates of the others yet. They saw 2 Luxons, but they can't tell them apart.
The scene really works because normally they probably would have just started shooting because apparently their success is measured in the body count.
Yeah.
But because they're all suffering from heat delirium, makes it like a very plausible ploy.
What kind of creature are you?
That's a good question. It's too bad Christ didn't ask that before he declared war on me.
They're not operating on full capacity, so they're easily bluffed, and he like makes him sound like he's like not a shapeshifter, like a duplicator,
like he's some alien with superpowers that they should fear, because that's his bluff, that's his strategy, that's why he stops.
Yeah, and I'm gonna fuck you up if you like don't go away,
and therefore lets them go.
Yeah, let them go. Get them back to their own ship.
A risky gambit.
So the Marauder disappears. The scuttlebutt start cleaning up the blue goop, and we are treated to a scene on the bridge again.
Yes, because the Drak are returning.
Now departing. There's a final farewell from...
from the monarch to Rygel.
Yes.
Completely blanking the rest.
Yes. It's like, especially Crichton is like still trying to like play in his role of spokesperson here.
Well, I think I can speak for all of us when
she just walks past him.
Nope, just totally blanks him.
Yeah, Rygel is the one I am talking to now.
We shall not meet again, great ruler.
Again, stroking his ego, or maybe even stoking it.
Crichton calls him Big Fella.
Big Fella!
Ah, yes.
It's a fun little nickname. You've got a DRD with a little broom trying to get rid of the coagulant that was everywhere. And finally, like, Zhaan is worn out from probably the venom. Crichton guides her back to her quarters, says, "You can lean on me," and says,
"Yes, I know I can."
Ah, yes, that was quite sweet.
And they sort of resolve the lessons that she's been counselling with. They also have a little. It's like a little coda that made this seem like more of a regular sci-fi program where he asks her about, okay, so we saw these creatures and I thought that they were bugs to be smashed, but
yes,
and I would have done the same thing to the dentic and those germ bugs that you injected me with when I first came on board.
The translator microbes.
Yeah, those guys, but.
And these DRDs, and you see they're good. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
Just to think about that for a minute. It's just arbitrary.
They're just life. Everything's life, and
yeah, like even Moya, she's our protector and she's our home, but she's also our servant, and depends on us as well.
Also, a kind of symbiotic relationship, I suppose.
I didn't think it was particularly well developed as an argument. I think maybe the writers thought that they were
going to make more of it later.
Maybe more of it later, or that this is something that you had to do in sci-fi. You know, the little button at the end where you rehash the moral issue that you face today and the lesson that you learned.
Well, at least they don't seem to do that very heavily here.
They tend to close with a relationship moment between two characters. So here again, John and Aeryn out on what they call the terrace,
where apparently she was like taking her repose after the heat ordeal.
Oh, it's so gorgeous because it's like open.
Yeah,
it's entirely
like,
open.
It must be some forced domed bridge. Yeah,
because you can look down over the skin of Moya with the veins and the ligaments.
And you're standing on the outside. I mean, I guess that would like be a little bit freaky at first.
So she finally asks him the question that she required of him. She made him promise, like, kill me before the heat delirium takes me.
Yes.
Like, could you have done it?
Well, she gets a bit of a dig in at him first,
with the remark that she's learned a lesson too.
I always thought that lesser life forms were useless. Just something to be squashed.
Yeah, it's like heavily implying that, like...
Crichton doesn't get it at first.
No.
Well, on behalf of lesser life forms everywhere, I accept the compliment.
After that, he would have given her the mercy killing if she'd laid that one on him before.
I thought it was a good episode. I thought it was the early ones. They're not very, very highly regarded, and this sort of felt like a bit of a monster of the week thing.
They are fairly episodical in the beginning, you said,
and the shows can be like this. Show can be anything.
Yeah.
Now it's a creature feature. Last week it was E.T. It can just go anywhere with these characters.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. It's like
I'm really glad you're enjoying it.
The visuals are stunning. It's like, especially for like something that's late 90s, it's just like unbelievably good. The special effects really hold up,
and the gorgeous designs, like the whole ship. It's like Gaudi.
Ah, yes, it is.
Right,
a bit,
the sort of naturalist, and with all of these beautiful materials, and all of the it continually looks different.
It's very organic.
Yeah, and that's the story so Farscape.
We'll see you next week with episode 104, Thrown for a Loss, where a group of Tavieks come aboard for trade negotiations. Rygel takes a vitally important crystal from Moya to make himself seem wealthy. The Tavieks kidnap Rygel and take him down to the planet, leaving one of their wounded on board. Everyone goes to the surface to get him, except Zhaan, who stays on board to keep an eye on the Taviek left behind.
That's a really expansive synopsis. We're probably gonna do better than that in the future. But in the meantime, you can find us at So Farscape on Twitter and Facebook, and on SoFarscape.com. I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay. So
Farscape, so good.